We've got another episode of the Evolve Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Dave Gold, conscious business consultant. And today on the podcast, I've got Jason Grant. So Jason is a fresh mind coach, and he's been coaching for over 20 years now, 7 years with the Fresh Mind. He's from London, and we just met. So this is going to be a great opportunity for us to get to know each other, but also maybe to share some cool insights with the audience. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you so much, brother. And it's absolute pleasure speaking to you, especially like on a very short notice and just in the moment. So let's go, champ.
Yeah. So what's your journey or your story into becoming a fresh mind coach, and what does that mean exactly?
Very good question. Fresh Mind is a program that I designed 7 years ago while going through basically like a dark night of the soul, experiencing clinical depression, suicidal thoughts, seemingly out of nowhere and for no reason. Everything was happening perfectly fine in my life, as far as I could assess at that time. And I was clinically depressed, and I kept on asking myself why. Up until that point, I spent about 15 years doing user experience design, which is literally, as it says on the tin, designing experiences. Yet experience of my own life was absolutely terrible in my head. Okay, everywhere else that I could see was pretty much perfectly fine. You know, I'm living in London. I've got wife and two children, roof over my head. I'm earning good money. I'm doing what I love, yet I'm depressed. So I had to work my way out of that dark night of the soul without using things like psychedelics or antidepressant pills and things like that, because to me, that's not the modality that I go to ever, really. I don't even take painkillers. So I designed Fresh Mind, and the idea was that my clinical depression and feeling down was all originating up in here, and that basically my head was full of insert any word that signifies dirt. Nowadays we call it impurities, but you can call it feces, okay, not to swear. And I had to clear out those impurities out of my head to then feel different. Lo and behold, I didn't realize that that was going to lead me to a state of ever-present bliss, basically being high on my own supply. So what is Fresh Mind? It's a program that takes people from low and down states of mental being to very high permanent state of bliss and love and peace.
Yeah, and you can curse on the podcast because it's true. A lot of people have shit in their minds and they just don't get it out, and it's like,
When you say word feces, it makes people think, well, what is feces? It's like, yeah.
wow, we never had that conversation on the podcast. I knew this one would be very innovative. Uh, when we talk about mindset, people, they seem to not like to go very deep. Most people are like, oh, mindset. Yep, I got that one down. I got a good mindset.
Yeah.
I figured it out. I already like know what to do with the women or with the gym, or, I was in the gym today, and like I thought I knew what I was doing when it came to doing a push-up until someone showed me the correct way to actually do a push-up. And I've been doing push-ups and sit-ups my whole life. So it's like,
Yep.
you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people think they know a lot. And that really holds us back. And I'm wondering, like, when it comes to you being like a polymath, you said you're doing a lot of everything. Like, how do you bring on another skill when you already feel like you know so much?
Um, what my profession has been for the last 20 years is user experience design. And nowadays, that is being called cognitive design, because user experience design is designing experiences, and experiences are outcomes of all human interactions with all their senses, which they're not five, they're more than five, but let's just say there's five senses, and the experience is outcome of all those interactions. And then there is a question of who is the one who is experiencing, okay, which is kind of like the taboo topic for a lot of people. And even I find it even in spiritual retreats where people might take ayahuasca and God knows what other 5-MeO DMT and whatever, it's like still the taboo is like, who is the one that is tripping? Okay. And it's like, don't you dare answer that question, because if I was to say who I really am, you know, it's like the whole world would crumble and be like, how dare you? As like Greta Thunberg says. um, how do I add another skill to my set? Well, because I know who I am, and that another skill is not a big deal to add. It's just another piece of things in my repertoire of, you know, skills that I need, in fact, because,
That's
you know,
significant. That can't be taken for granted because a lot of people, they they don't want to learn a new skill. They feel like learning another language or another technical skill is too much. And then you see
yeah.
other people who, even as they age, they're constantly learning new skills. They're constantly acquiring, certain people, when they hit a certain age, they don't want to learn the phone. They don't want to learn the new apps.
Mhm.
Others are profiting off of them. So,
Yeah.
like, what do you think is the mindset of someone that actually wants to acquire skills and actually generate like a new identity around themselves?
I think the key word that comes to my mind and heart and soul is inquisitiveness, right? Wanting to know what else is possible. I was actually speaking to one of my clients yesterday about this, and certain people are very comfortable in just doing the same thing over and over and over again and never really questioning the process. In fact, you know, studies show that about 50%, 50% of people don't have an inner dialogue of any kind. They just have a kind of, what I've been discussing with another friend is like a single processor running in their sort of computer, mental computer. Whereas I've always got a dialogue going on in my head. Whatever thought I have another kind of critic in my head going, is that really true? Like, do you really think that? And so on. And that's like a dual processor mindset. Um, so some people, I think, with single processor mindset, they just want to stick to what they're good at, and that's it, and repeat it over and over and over again. People with dual processor mindset, they're constantly looking for another thing to add and bring into their life experience.
And do you
So
believe you were
yeah,
born with that, or is that something that you acquired, like the dual processor mind?
I think you are. It could. I'm not 100% sure. I'm still kind of doing research into this, right? By speaking to people and experimenting and so on. But I think there is an element of you're born with it, and there's an element of it being developed.
Mm.
Uh, I always choose to believe, if I've got to believe, and you know, beliefs are not really required in the way I think about life. You know, I'm going with like facts and knowledge first. Uh, Beliefs is almost like a storytelling thing. But if I'm forced at a gunpoint to believe something, I choose to believe that everything is possible to develop somehow. Yeah. So even the person with a single processor can switch up to dual processor. Um, in fact, you know, if someone plays drums, if you think about drummers, drummers are playing four things at the same time. Each limb is doing a different thing. So they
Mm.
got like a quad processor going on, and
Yeah.
they're very comfortable with that. So, and that's a learnable skill. You know, people are not born playing a drum, you know, with four limbs separately. Uh, so let's just go with, I believe it's learnable, but some people are naturally born with it to start off with, so they can just go
Mm.
up like this, whereas some might have to kind of muscle through developing that extra parallel processing capacity and then, you know. fly.
Mm, mm. And I've really noticed that in working with different types of clients, like it
Mhm.
really depends on how fast their processor is going
Yeah.
as to how fast we
Mm.
can go in the
Yeah.
coaching relationship. And sometimes it's even out of your control. And you've got to be able to
Mm.
manage expectations around the person that you're working with.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Another thing that is has been a really big focus of a lot of the people that I work with is around sales. And I'm wondering your perspective on the mindset of sales, because one thing that I was talking to my friend the other day about how needing nothing attracts everything. And when you come off, people feel like you don't need it, you're not desperate about it,
Mhm.
they want it, right? They really
Mhm.
find it much more intriguing. So have you found that to be the case as well in your life? And what do you think is like the mindset around needing nothing?
So nothingness, as with capital N, is arguably the highest identity we can hold.
Hmm.
Just going off the like Big Bang Theory. I know a lot of people that might listen to this, but like it's too scientific, and all that stuff. But I grew up like when I was 7 years old in ex-Yugoslavia. I was reading a book called Cosmos by Carl Sagan, which is actually quite a spiritual book because in that book, Carl Sagan says there's lots of things we don't know about the universe. In fact, vast majority of the universe is unknown. And living in the unknown, which can also be equated to nothingness, okay, is one of the most powerful places to be in. So when you're in the identity of nothingness, in the unknown, which is the vast majority of the universe, then
Mhm.
you're actually embracing that and being at peace with that which the ego cannot deal with, contemplate. And then you're actually living from your soul, sun, enlightenment, light being, and you are enlightening that which is unknown. And many people are attracted to those who can bring light to their darkness.
Wow.
I'm just explaining this from the moment, right? I've not written or pre-written these descriptions, right? It's just coming out of me without thinking per se. Yeah.
I think that was really well said, especially the end there where you said that, you know, people are very attracted to those who could bring a light to their darkness.
Hmm.
And I've seen that in business relationships and retreats and in romantic relationships, where we are attracting people who feel like we can bring a light to their darkness or vice versa. And
And
yeah, go for
it,
it.
it must make logical sense,
Mm,
going back to mathematics and logics and systems thinking, that, you know, there is so much like war and fighting. I've been through 3 years of war in ex-Yugoslavia, so I know exactly what that is like. And it helps me understand the beauty and uh, amazingness of peace, right, as a contrasting thing. But, if you ask any person, good or bad, if you want to label them that way, do you want more war in your life? And no one, even insane people, will say, no, I don't want more war. So therefore, and war is like equivalent to darkness, right? And therefore, what is it that they want more of? Peace, which is light. That's it.
yeah, and people are attracting what they want, but also the place where they've been. And that's why
Mhm.
we attract, our parent type at times, because it's like that's what's familiar. So it's like you're attracting your light, but also your darkness as well. I'm
Mhm.
wondering, in terms of entrepreneurship, like,
Mhm.
because a lot of the guys that do follow me and listen to this podcast are entrepreneurs, like,
Mhm.
what's been the biggest challenge for you in entrepreneurship or something that you're going through right now, in your life?
Biggest challenge in entrepreneurship. Um, I think sometimes maybe people are looking for some sort of supernatural answer to this, but really the direct answer that really is coming from my soul right now is pretty much having to do it all on my own. And
Mm,
when I say that, I don't mean it quite literally in that sense, because often the time you'll have employees you can hire, outsource to others, etc. But when you outsource to others, I did a master's degree in business management, 20 years ago. Outsourcing itself then requires also looking over what those people are doing, having a say as to, as that finished, let's move on and so on. You have to manage that outsourced resource. So you're still the person responsible for all of that. No one else is going to step in into your CEO position of your company and take over and just sort it out for you while you kind of curl up in the corner and cry for a couple of days and be vulnerable with yourself. And that's why lots of entrepreneurs end up over the years being just completely like hardened pieces of iron, right? And it's like, what do you feel like, bro? And it's like, don't ask that question because I feel like I've been in, ring with Mike Tyson in his prime for 20 years, and I've never had like a break in between to just kind of get a sip of water and rinse the blood out of my mouth, So yeah, that's the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur.
it is. It is. It's so true. You know, a lot of people, they also give up on the journey because they get tired and they get burnt out from doing it all on their own. And
Yeah.
when the employees don't work out and the team falls apart, sometimes it's like guys are either taking a victim mentality or they're settling and going back and doing something that they didn't really want to do in the first place. And entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but it definitely takes like an updated mindset or identity and the constant innovation to continue to stay on top of your game, because there's a lot of people out there that are coming for you in a way, not as competition, but the markets are shifting. And,
Yeah.
reputation has gotten a lot of people very far, but these days it's also about consistency. And I see
Mhm.
some coaches that are doing, very well and they're not really promoting themselves.
Mhm.
And that's really incredible. In an amazing way to approach it is like reverse psychology. Like, yeah, I'm not really in the mind in the limelight, so I'm more of a mystery. However,
Mhm.
most coaches can't really get away with that. They need to kind of like build a brand and put themselves out there. So I'm wondering, like, do you like focus at all on your brand? And if so, like which aspect?
That's a good question. Brand is kind of like one of those double-edged swords for people like myself, potentially, because brand is looking to define people and sort of kind of formalize who you are, right? And someone like me is ever evolving and moving in all sorts of different directions as my actual competitive advantage. Because when I was working 20 years ago, I was in web development and I was saying to companies, the future of every company is going to be an automated digital first company. And they were looking at me and saying, this guy has been tripping on some bad stuff. We have no idea what internet is, what digital is, why he would say this, etc., etc. Nowadays, they're talking about AI first companies, startups, in other words, saying we don't actually want to hire a single human, if at all possible. We want to delegate everything to AI and only hire a human where absolutely necessary. And so for me to tell that story, like ever evolving story over 20 years, has not necessarily been possible to do that through a, a static brand that just kind of stays as it is. And actually, the biggest brands in the world, they constantly evolve anyway. So if you're having, from my perspective, if you're having a personal brand, you need to revisit that every now, like probably about twice a year, I would say, to update whatever is there. Uh, But yeah, I think personal branding is very important, because if you can't quickly and easily say to people what you do, they get confused, they get bored, they walk away, and so on. And someone else who can gets the business or gets the attention, etc. So it's a double-edged sword, highly recommended, but understand that your brand also needs to evolve over time. So it's not a static thing. Yeah.
That was very well said, especially for the Evolve Your Brand podcast. And I'm just,
There you go.
what is it that you do?
So my core expertise is user experience design, which these days is described as cognitive design. In other words, how does the mind consume all the things it interacts with? It's applied psychology, basically. Why do you go into, like, for example, I'm into luxury watches, right? You walk into a luxury watch shop and you go with an intent to buy a Tissot watch of a certain type, and you walk away with a Omega Speedmaster, right? It's like, why did that happen? And the answer is experience design knows, and experienced designers know. And the salesperson and the customer service person who guided the person through that process knows exactly what happened in that person's mind, cognition, to go from Tissot at 750 to Omega at 3,500. Okay. Uh, and and that's what I've been doing like all my life. And then, I use that core skill set to help people change their minds now through the Fresh Mind program, because it's really saying your mind as a kind of metaphysical object is also subject to continuous improvement, upgrades, redesign, and remodeling. And I can help you do that faster, better, more reliably, as opposed to it just happening because life happened to you. It's like you make life happen as opposed to life happens to you.
And do you have any invitation if someone did manage to make it through this episode of the podcast? Like, is there anything that you invite them to do?
Yeah, so you can basically you can reach out to me. You can have a little sort of discovery call. We can go through a chat to see where you're at and where you would like to be. Basically, any kind of design is about moving things or people from current state to intended state. Usually, the current state is at a lower level, perceivably, than the intended state at a higher level, and that doesn't necessarily just mean money or material goods. It also means emotions, spirituality, well-being in general, love, the opposite of evil, love. So, if you want less evil and more love in your life, you want to go from that like current state to future state. We can redesign your mind to do that. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm glad to connect with you, especially in this way. And I like the way it all played out. So this was fun. And for me, um, I heard recently something that really resonated, which was just like, you wake up in the morning, win. You get out of bed, win. You do your bed,
Mhm.
another win. And I haven't been going live that much recently. So to just jump on a spontaneous Facebook Live and, connect with someone new is something that I think more people should do. And it was really fun to, do that. And this was the first time we've ever spoken. So
Mhm.
when you get a chance to meet someone in like a vulnerable setting and you can just go live and talk about what you guys are passionate about, I think it helps the potential for the online interaction to be that much more powerful. So if you're watching this and we've never spoken before, but you've got a powerful message to share, reach out to me and I would be happy to discuss potential collaboration. All right. So I'm currently running the second cohort of the Business Growth Brotherhood. We just got started this week. So that's my call to action. If you want to be a part of a conscious male entrepreneurship brotherhood, then reach out to me and I will shoot you over the details. All right. Thank you so much for the episode, Jason Grant, and I look forward to learning more about you in the future.
Thank you so much, brother. Love you so much.
Yeah, you as well. Peace.